Welcome to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life with your host, Linda Lang.
Hi, this is Linda Lang from ThoughtChange.com. If you enjoy our conversations, please remember to subscribe, share with a friend. Today, we are exploring the mystical side of life with Deb Frew. Deb is a fantastic tarot reader, and she's also the founder of the Worldwide Metaphysical Tribe. Welcome, Deb.
Hi, thank you.
Well, before we start our conversation on tarot, Deb, I'd like to know a little bit more about your Worldwide Metaphysical Tribe. How did it get started?
It's a great story. I belonged to a group of psychics that we would meet at a center, and we would do readings for people and each other, and we had all kinds of classes and so forth. And I live about 2 hours away from everybody that I know. So, because I live in a log cabin on a lake in the woods, which is great, except everyone's far away. So I thought, well, I'm going to have a picnic. Well, not exactly, but I'd invite everybody out. We'd go out to dinner. We'd come to my house. I have 2 big fire pits, so we'd set one on fire and do readings for each other. And in fact, we did those things. And it was a lot of fun. And the people who had driven out for this had driven 100 miles to come to my house.
Wow.
And they were not interested in going home. 11:30 at night, they finally decided that they should probably get on the road for that 2-hour trip. But as they were leaving, they were all saying to me, "We're going to do this again next year, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, great." So the next year, I realized that the Perseid meteor shower had been in effect that first night, and I wanted to make it a little more exciting and fun. So I asked a storyteller to come, who turned out to be one of the best storytellers on earth. I didn't even know that. And he told a story about a fairy. And one of the people in our group is a walk-in soul. And she stood up at the end of his story and she said, "Pan, who's the head of the fairies, has just told me that if we say his name 3 times, he'll appear." Okay, now we can't breathe. We're just like, oh my goodness, what now? We were outside. We were standing in front of what I call the wild space, which is, I have it there specifically for the fairies to live in. And have I seen one? No, but this was a different day. This particular day, I want to back up a little bit, it was very hot and humid, no breeze. It was miserably miserable out. And all of the trees and plants were like this. They just wanted to be watered. They just wanted coolness, something. And when Linda, the walk-in soul, said these words, we said his name 3 times, Pan, Pan. We got to the 3rd one, and I looked around into the wild space, and everything is standing there, just looking terrible, except this one bush was shaking at 100 miles an hour, just shaking. And I looked at the group and I said, "Is anyone else seeing this?" And everybody's jaw was open. It was just like, so I took that to be Pan, because nothing else was moving in that hot, humid afternoon. And ever since then, I knew that there was some reason for us to be getting together. And so each year I would make it a little more exciting. The 3rd and 4th years, I had a fire dancer and entertainment and vendors, and I just kept making it bigger and bigger. But it has finally come to be a 2-day event right now, which is the first day is networking and business coaching for us, because metaphysicians, a lot of them have a real hard time with the business side of business.
Right.
You know, they're great at reading, but boy, they just, spreadsheets give them the chills. And I get that, So this whole first day is dedicated to that. And then the second day is always dedicated to blowing your mind, because I look for the most out there, cutting edge speakers. And boy, we've had some amazing ones.
Have you ever tried taking a picture of your wild space? Sometimes unexplained things can show up in photography, especially at dusk.
I do that. In fact, my husband gifted me with a better camera this year so I could go outside and take more. I have video, I have photos. Yes, I have lots.
I have a friend who had taken a picture in the forest at Lilydale. There was a light in the photo that wasn't visible with her eyes. She had it blown up, and there was a face in it. It was so cool.
Amazing. I have something that looks like a fairy. I can't say what it is, but it looks like a fairy. But I have orbs shooting at me at the speed of light, and tubes of light coming down from the sky right in front of me.
I know I've talked to you before, and there are all these orbs whizzing by. So hopefully they'll show up for us today.
One never knows, but I check everyone else's Zoom feed because I want to see somebody else with orbs. But I do have a lot of them, yeah.
So Deb, what's happening this year?
This year, the Metaphysical Tribe is, there will be a live event that I'll have limited tickets to, and we'll have speakers and so forth. So you will be able to visit vendors, you'll be able to go to the speakers' talks, you'll be able to participate.
It's always fun going to a metaphysical fair.
We did do a 100% virtual last year, and it was really fun. We ended with a cocktail party and raffles, and we just had a wonderful time.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to put the links in the show notes in case anyone's interested in checking that out. And now, Deb, you are the first tarot reader that I've had on the show. And I've had a reading from you. And I remember within the first few minutes, I felt like I had had my reading. The information and the guidance was clear and specific and like right on. It was amazing. How long have you been doing tarot?
So I've been reading professionally for 35 years.
What drew you to tarot in the first place?
So I was getting divorced, and I kept getting these promptings to go buy a tarot deck. Now, mind you, 35, 36, 37 years ago, there was no Barnes and Noble, there was no Amazon. You couldn't find a tarot deck. Where did you look for tarot decks? And I was in a town just a little north of Chicago, and there was a crazy little bookstore called Platypus Books, and they're not there anymore. But I walked in and I asked them, do you have any tarot decks? And they said, well, we have two. And I said, okay, which one should I buy? And they said, well, you should probably buy this one. This is the original deck. And it was a Rider-Waite deck, the deck that all of traditional tarot is based on. So I bought the deck, and for 2 years, I was the worst reader on planet Earth. I could not figure out what those symbols meant. My friends hated coming to me for a reading. I mean, I would force them, and I was terrible at it. It's just terrible. I could never be an actor because I can't memorize things. Like, I can't memorize keywords and 78 cards plus 78 upside down cards. I just couldn't do it. And so I just said, you called me. Can you fix this, please? and I was invited to a party, and there was a tarot reader there, and she was actually in a corner of the room, but out in the party reading for people. So if you got a reading, people could hear what was going on. So I thought, oh, this is my chance. I stood behind the reader and I listened to the question, and then I saw what cards she turned over. I knew what she was going to say. It was like watching television, and I was floored. She solved the problem for me. I said to her, "What deck are you using?" And she said, "The Mythic Tarot." And I went out and bought one right away. And sure enough, it's like watching television for me. Now, there's thousands, hundreds of new decks come out every year. And there's a deck for everyone, trust me. Just because this is the one that works for me. I like Greek mythology. This particular deck is based on Greek mythology, so I really enjoy it. I can get right into the stories. Other people like other things, and there's certainly a tarot deck for that, trust me.
I think that Greek mythology is actually a really good representation of the archetypes.
I agree. I think a lot of them came from there.
Yeah. And I think that there is a link between tarot and playing cards, is there not?
Okay, so this is interesting. The actual beginning of tarot is not known. There was a card game called Trumps, and that's what the major arcana are called in a tarot deck, is trumps. And it was sort of like bridge, and people would play that, but somewhere along the line it got changed into sort of a fortune telling thing. And how it went from that is another mystery. However, you can read playing cards as if they were the tarot, but you don't have the trumps in a regular deck of cards, because there's 52 cards in a regular card playing deck and 78 in a tarot deck, because all of the trumps are there. But you can tell fortunes, as they say. I always tell my students, don't ever let anybody tell you that you're doing this wrong, because nobody knows how the tarot started. Nobody knows the origins of this. And so whatever you do is okay. You know, don't let people tell you that they know a better way. Just do your thing. Be you.
And it's really just a tool, right?
It's just like a hammer. It doesn't matter which hammer you use as long as it's a good hammer.
I have met some people who seem almost to be addicted to pulling cards, to getting messages. They'll pull a card and then they'll pull another card to understand what that first card meant. And they keep pulling cards, and next thing you know, they're like 5 cards deep and they end up totally confused.
Well, there's a difference between reading for yourself and reading for someone else. I do not read cards for myself. I can see anything in those cards because I've read them so many times. I still use the same deck for all these years, newer versions of it, but the same deck. So if I have a question for myself, I use the runes, because now when you buy runes, they show you all these rune spreads that you can do and so forth. I draw one rune. And if I can't get settled with what that says, then I know I've got some work to do. It's written in stone. You can't change the meaning. The meaning is the meaning. And so that's what I use for myself, because I need that discipline of message, because when I look at the cards, I've seen everything in them.
In general, do you recommend that people don't pull a card for themselves?
I teach people to get in touch with their intuition by pulling 3 cards a day. So in the morning, pull 3 cards. One represents morning, one represents afternoon, one represents evening. Just quickly write down the first thing that comes to your mind. So if you pull a card with a guy wearing a red suit, then you might suddenly think, oh, remember that Prince song, Red Corvette? That's what you write down. And then you might go out that morning and see a red Corvette. And I also tell people to give themselves go out and buy gold stars and give themselves a gold star. So because they forget how tuned in they really are. And one day of not getting any hits makes you think you're no good. So get those, gold stars and give yourself credit for the times that you do have a hit. And so to me, it's fine to draw your own cards. Plenty of people do it. I just don't trust myself to do it because, like I said, the very same card can mean 100,000 different things to me, depending on the cards surrounding it, the person I'm reading for, the situation. So,
Yeah, I suppose if you're pulling cards for an important decision, let's say, and you're in the middle of your stuff, you're actually seeing that card through your stuff, right?
remember I told you about the tarot reader at the party? Her name is Mary, and she and I became best friends. She is my mentor, and she's an incredible reader. And I call Mary when I can't get enough distance between myself and my stuff.
It's always good to have someone else give you a different perspective.
The most important thing to remember is, okay, let's say you get up in the morning and you make your lunch and you go to work and you go to hit your time card and you have a pink slip in your slot and you've lost your job. That's not the right time to call your reader. Your reader can't see it either, can't see what's going on, generally speaking. It kicks up cosmic dust when things are happening and nobody can see through it. You need for the dust to settle a little bit. You need to sit with it a little bit. And why is that? It's because in the end, a tarot reader can help you, but all the heavy lifting is up to you. And sitting with your situation is heavy lifting. Being with the reality of it, thinking about it on your terms, not somebody else's interpretation, is really vital to living your own life and not having somebody else sort of it's you don't want to give over your authority to someone else. So sit with it yourself. Then if you're looking for a job and you're not sure should you take this one or that one, that's a great time to talk to a tarot reader.
And can you clarify the difference between oracle cards and tarot for us?
Oracle cards are, well, let me start with tarot. Tarot is actually a system, the actual real tarot cards, and there's lots of people who call their decks tarot cards, but they're not. So real tarot cards are 78 cards that are based on a deck that was sort of formalized in 1901 by Mr. Rider and Mr. Waite. And they pulled an artist, Pamela Coleman Smith, into their project, and she painted each of the 78 cards on canvas. And that's how the original deck was plotted, and it still is. So real tarot cards are based on Rider-Waite, but they don't have to be Rider-Waite. But they follow the principles of Rider-Waite. For example, someone gave me a deck of Leonardo da Vinci tarot cards, but there's extra cards in there. And they don't really follow the major and minor arcana. So I can't really read them, but they're beautiful to look at. Oracle cards, on the other hand, don't have any structure at all. Oracle cards, and I don't mean this in a nasty way, but I sort of think of them as, when you buy a calendar and it has 365 affirmations and you tear one off every day, it's sort of like that. But reading oracle cards is not that simple. I've I've had mine read just so I could see what the process was. And I've had readers use 5 decks at a time.
Wow.
And with those 5 decks, they decide which deck they're going to choose from, and then they choose a card and it answers my question. So it's an intuitive process also, but just not one that I've indulged in really. I mean, like I said, I will get my oracle cards read because I'm curious about the process.
I have not had an oracle card reading, but it does sound very interesting.
I guess you just have to, like with any reader, get a good recommendation.
So, Deb, by any chance, do you have your cards with you today? Would you be interested in pulling a card and giving a message for the listeners?
Let me give them one quick shuffle. I just like to get the energy moving around.
Ooh, that brings up another question. Do you have to clear the energy of your cards?
I teach this in my class too. There's a lot of old wives' tales about cards. If you think that your stapler is holding a lot of negative energy, it's just a tool. It's just a tool. Now, on the other hand, when the full moon comes out, I have 3 skylights and I like to put out my cards and my crystals and clear them. I don't know if that's happening, but I like ritual. And so, what can I say? So, this is the card that I chose for today, and it's the 9 of Cups. And the 9 of Cups is a blessed union that's blessed by the goddess. So it's not just a happy wedding, you're being blessed by the goddess. And all of those cups stand for love. There's 9 of them. You couldn't be, the only card above those is the 10, which is an established happy family. I call it the white picket fence card. And this card is the actual moment of joining. So it's a wonderful card to take through your day because you are joining with really good energy every day. You have to allow yourself to see it.
Beautiful message, Deb. Let's just all open up and allow more blessings into our lives.
I agree.
Deb, how can people connect with you?
The fastest way is my website, which is internalwilderness.com. You can also find information about the Worldwide Metaphysical Tribe there. Yes, please stop by and take a look at what's coming up with the tribe and, just availability for me, and, drop me a line. I love to meet new people.
Thank you, Deb, for being my guest. I really enjoyed our conversation today. And thank you for listening to this week's edition of Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment, share it with a friend, give us some love, subscribe to the channel. Come and visit me at thoughtchange.com. Pick up your copy of Learning to Listen. I also have a beautiful program called Alchemy from the Inside Out. If you're interested in bringing alchemy, energy healing, self-exploration, and a little magic into your life. That's it for this week. Bye for now.